Hey, ladies and gents, how's it going? Hope you're having a fan-fucking-tastic day and an even better night. This is the very first episode of Inside and Out with Sage, right here on the Fandom Empire YouTube channel. And joining me today is a guy that I consider a long-distance friend, someone I met, I guess it's almost 4 or 5 years ago now, and shared probably the most unique and weird podcast experience of my life in a Burger King drive-thru we might talk about a little later, but definitely never forget that one. It's David Gremillion of Geek News Now. How's it going, man?
Hey man, so I get to be the leadoff hitter, the first one up out of the gate for this, what is going to be a fantastic show because you're doing it, so it's going to be awesome. I mean, feel a little bit of pressure right now, man. I got to bring my A game to kick this thing off right.
Just gonna jeter it, go out there and leave it all out on the field, see what happens.
Now, wait a minute. Isn't there a hockey analogy in there somewhere you're going to work in? I mean, baseball, that's our thing. What are you doing?
I guess he could be the face-off guy. I can't think of a lead-off term for hockey that makes any sort of sense with this.
How about this? I'm going to find a way to get it in there through the 5-hole.
Well, if you're shooting on the Leafs, I'm sure you'll have no problem doing that. So,
outstanding.
All right, so a little bit about Inside and Out first. Inside and Out is a show that we're going to do where we have one-on-one sit-downs with other guests. David is our first guest. We have Ben Hart and Dominic Jones from Star Wars Underworld lined up. We have Zach from the IPC podcast lined up. We have Mark Thompson lined up, who's a Star Wars voice actor, does the audiobooks, and a couple other guests a little down the line that we haven't quite confirmed, but will do so soon. But right now, our attention's here and now on the man running Geek News Now, formerly of Get Your Geek On. Dude, the first thing I just want to ask is, how are things going, man? How are you?
Yeah, things are going well. Weather's finally starting to warm up a little bit. It's no longer, the frigid 51 degrees that it typically gets down here in South Texas. So, I'm sure we'll be back up into the 120s, 130s here pretty soon, like we're supposed to be. So things are moving along. Geek News Now is growing at a nice clip. I mean, everybody would, just love to be a one-hit wonder and, just knock it out of the park overnight. But Facebook page is over 3,200 likes. We got a Twitter account. We've got Instagram. We're getting ready to launch 3 new podcasts plus a Twitch channel. So it's a lot to keep up with, but it's also a lot of fun seeing everybody's little geeky dream kind of come to life. It's a lot of fun.
I had the conversation the other day with a mutual acquaintance of ours, Thomas Bradshaw, and he sort of just asked me, like, do you think we're taking on too much at once? And I said, yeah, we do have a lot of, things moving with Facebook and Facebook pages and groups right now that we're slowly trying to build up. But no, like, we finally left Mixler. I mean, I'd been part of Mixler since May 2015, and as a listener since 2013. So to finally leave Mixler and make the transition over to YouTube, it's a nice change. We were speaking off there about how when you get to visually see the person you're talking to, don't get me wrong, podcasts are great, and I listen to them all the time. I drive a lot, so no better company than a podcast with you. That said, there's something about seeing the person you're talking to, and even if you've spoken with this person for 4 or 5 years or shared a show with them, visually seeing them as you're doing it, you get some newfound chemistry. It brings a new level of enjoyment to it. So I definitely see where you're coming from in terms of you got a lot on the go right now. We definitely have a lot on the go, but at the same time, we didn't think we'd be on YouTube full-time yet. We were planning a slower transition, and we just kind of decided, okay, this is going a little smoother than we thought, so fuck Mixler. I'm done. They overcharge, and let's move on.
And now everybody gets to see why I have a face for radio. So that's good news right there. That's just awesome.
No. Hey, your backdrop, dude, I said to you off air, is fucking spectacular.
Why, thank you, kind sir. Yeah, this is something that has taken me more than a few years to put together. Some of this I got at Celebration when they were still doing the Roman numeral thing. Celebration 6 out in Orlando. So that's 2012. Some of the stuff goes that far back. And a lot of it's autographed. A lot of it has been donated from people that I've done interviews with. And a lot of it is actually still kind of under construction a little bit. I wish I had a wider camera so you could see it all. But it's a lot of fun collecting all this stuff. I know a lot of people like to collect Funko Pops or action figures, and I'm always impressed when the collection, stacks up to the ceiling. But there's just something about wall art and just getting that up there. It supports the artist, which is great, but I don't know, man. It just looks really cool. I just love it.
I was feeling pretty good about my backdrop, which is really hard to see on these narrowed screens we're using right now. But it's very cluttery. I have very little room to work with down here. And then I seen yours, and it's just like, oh,
well, your backdrop is going to be one of those where you're going to look back on this like on your 100th episode, and you're going to be like, how in the hell did I even think about starting a show with a backdrop that looks like just total crap? What was I thinking? You'll look back on it. You'll love it.
Well, I mean, one of the reasons we delayed doing this is I was upstairs, and essentially I had a corner in the bedroom, and the backdrop would have been my bed in a window. And
whoa! That's the wrong kind of backdrop. Okay.
I mean,
I'm not doing that type of show.
I was gonna say, depends what kind of show you're looking for.
Well, wait a minute. This one is called Inside and Out.
Yes.
Okay.
David Gremillion, Inside and Out.
This is the After Dark show.
One of the things I was just gonna hang a curtain up there. I was gonna be like, I can just do a curtain background, whatever. It's not super important. And I have a popcorn ceiling in the bedroom, and I couldn't get anything to stick into the ceiling. I'm like, well, guess we're doing an office downstairs then. So that's how we ended up here. But no, eventually I want something similar to how you have it, and it looks spectacular, man.
And by God, that's the story we all wanted to hear, is how you started up that office down there. That's Look at all the subs. Look at all the subs.
Right?
Look at them.
Going through the roof right now. How can I have a cluttered office like that? So,
yeah.
Let's dive right into it, man. How did you get into podcasting? Like, when was the point you finally decided, you know what, I can do my own podcast?
So sometime around 2014, 2013, I've always been an outgoing, ambitious, obnoxious guy. I mean, there's just no, I'll come right out and I'll own it. I mean, I'm fine with that. And that's the type of personality you have to be in order to have a successful, wildly successful podcast. So I started up just in my living room with my beagle, my wife, and an aquarium next to me, which I'm sure made the audio sound wonderful, all that bubbling and everything. And I just started, it was a Star Wars only podcast, and I just spoke my mind. I just talked about what sucks and what doesn't, and of course, everyone's favorite topic, what I would do differently, in the Star Wars franchise. And then that went away for a little while. That went on hiatus, and then I'm sitting in my car one afternoon, and I'm just listening to radio, and I'm flipping through all these stations, and there's nothing good on. It was like a Saturday or a Sunday, and it's like how to manage your 401k and how to change the oil in your car, and it sucks. Radio sucks on the weekend. So I call up a bunch of radio stations, and I say, how about we do a geek show on actual talk radio? 250 million Americans a week listen to radio. Let's do something for that. And one station picked it up and said, oh, yeah, let's give it a shot and see what happens. So then we went podcast / actual AM talk radio, won a few awards, interviewed a crap ton of people, covered a crap ton of events, and now I'm back to doing just kind of a standard podcast. It's called Take 5 with Dave. It's a 5-minute podcast. That's it. It's one topic. I hammer it home. It's 5 minutes. So if you've got a spare 5 minutes, you look up Geek News Now on Podbean, and you're there. And while I'm doing this, I'm thinking to myself, while I'm doing the radio show, that is, I'm thinking to myself, there are a lot of people out there who have geeky dreams. They want to do their own podcast, their own YouTube channel, their own Twitch channel. Maybe they want to write articles, but they just don't know how to get there. What equipment do I need? And what do I talk about? And all that sort of thing. And so I decided to lend my expertise to them and use Geek News Now as a platform to get anyone's geeky ambition off the ground, really. If they want to interview people, if they want to attend cons as members of the press, if they want to do podcasts, sure, man, let's do it. I've got all this expertise. I've got award-winning advice I can throw out. Yeah, let's knock this thing out. Anybody can make a podcast. It's really a question of your dedication, your determination, and a pinch of passion thrown in just for fun.
Now, when you're doing the podcast and you move into AM radio, which, by the way, it is brutal on weekends. For years, I'd go out every Saturday morning, and I've been in the transportation industry for a long time, and I'm so used to listening to AM radio all week, right? And mostly sports talk, but it's usually decent. And I'd find myself going out Saturday mornings, and after like the span of 6 months, it's like, oh my god, I actually know the name and the segments of this fishing show. I've been fishing once in my life. Why am I listening to this? And no, so I totally see where you're coming from with that. But when you go from podcast to AM radio, which I mean, it to me that's inspiring. The fact that there is somewhat of a market for that. You have to maintain your full-time job, obviously, that you already have going on, your family life, and then the AM radio practically become. I mean, if you're doing any sort of podcasting or networking that requires any level of commitment, it's like a job and a passion too. It's got to be something that you love and put time in. But like, how are you balancing all that, man? And how hard is it, or how hard was it for you to get an AM radio deal, knowing that it's not exactly a very common thing anywhere in the world, let alone where you are?
There's a lot of stigma in the business world, even still to this day, about what geeks can do and whether or not a geeky show can thrive. A lot of people don't know just how close we were to syndication and being broadcast in multiple cities and making deals with these Fortune 1000 companies. I mean, it was that close, and lost my train of thought. Hello, that's inspiring right there. I tell you what. And so there we go. So I was putting in about another 20 to 30 hours on top of my full-time job, because you've got to reach out and try to get sponsorships. And if you want to do an unboxing on air, you got to talk to people to get that done. I got to set up interviews. I interviewed 2 bridge members of the Orville, Seth MacFarlane's sci-fi show. Well, I got to reach out to their agents, and I got to get the questions to them, and then they send the questions back and say, I'm not talking about this. So I got to find new questions and yada, 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 and get it all set up. And yeah, it's easily, it was another 20 to 30 hours, not to mention, you go, there's a big Comic-Con in town, or you get invited. We were doing panels at Alamo City Comic-Con and Wizard World up in Austin, so got to travel up to Austin, got to travel to Dallas or Houston or wherever to do the cons and provide coverage, press coverage to anybody who, maybe you want to go to Comic Palooza in Houston and you just can't get there. So you can, we provide coverage for that. Went to Dragon Con in Atlanta, Emerald City Comic Con, which is going on right now. Well, almost right now, up in Seattle. And just, it was so much fun to travel and to see different parts of the country. But it was also a lot of fun to bring that coverage to people that couldn't go to those events. So a lot of work, ain't gonna lie, but so rewarding in the end. It really was.
So, I mean, this is the best way I can put it is we're gonna walk on some glass here and be very well. I mean, I'm gonna be a little careful anyway, which just doesn't sound right because that's not me at all. But both you and I, at one point in time, were. I mean, you were writing for them too, but we were a part of the Channel 1138 network, which hosts the Star Wars Underworld, and the IPC podcast was home. I believe you were still called Get Your Geek On there, were you not?
I believe so. Yeah, I think I took it. It was originally called the Star Wars Geeks Unite podcast, and then I took it to Get Your Geek On to kind of broaden and talk about more things than just Star Wars. So yeah, it was even back then. It was Get Your Geek On.
And I mean, the few people that do know who the hell I am would know me from Star Wars Wastelands, and that was
Oh, good
yeah.
times there,
It
man.
was. I mean, the end was shaky, but I'll tell you what, those first year and a half, 2 years was some of the best times of my life. Uh, both of us had maybe not the greatest exits from that network, and I'm still in touch with most of the people over there, and still work with some of them. What led to like what was your final nail in the coffin that made you leave 1138, and maybe instead of just shedding light on the negative, maybe what was the best part about being a part of 1138?
1138 and the Star Wars Underworld as a whole, they impressed me at how organized they were and how they were able to lay out their expectations. So I'm leading with the positive here for anybody who's watching. Let me just get that out of the way there. Um, they had a very clear vision. They knew what they wanted to do. And when I mean, there, of course, with any organization, there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes. But the front they presented to the fans looked sharp, crisp, like a well-oiled machine. So kudos to them for doing that. Lord knows it ain't easy. But what led to my exit with them, I had a podcast at the time that rivaled our numbers, rivaled what the SWU had for their podcast. I'm not going to say I exceeded their numbers or anything like that, but we were neck and neck for a time. And then I got into a bit of a dust up with another podcast host. You know that they have,
Yep.
what is it now, 104 podcasts, I think, over there now. So they've got like a different podcast every 27 minutes, something along those lines. So I got into a dust up. I don't really know how it started, but all of a sudden, out of the blue, this Facebook post was made by this podcast host, and it just took me to the woodshed. I was accused of sexual harassment and being sexist and hating women and hope you fail, you piece of blank, and blah blah blah. And I was like, okay, I'm still to this day, I'm not even sure where it originated from, but that was the first I was made aware of it. So I went to certain people behind the scenes there, and I'm like, look, that post really needs to come down because that can lead to some huge problems. I
Yeah.
mean, as a somewhat white male, that's really not the type of waters you want to tread in. If I did anything wrong, let's talk.
Yep.
Let's see what's going on there. But otherwise, that post needs to come down. Um, and the post eventually did come down, but there was no apology for calling me out on social media as sexually harassing and being sexist towards women. And I was like, look, either I get an apology or I mean I'm gone. I can't be on the same network with somebody who behaves in that manner. And the call that was made was, okay, off you go. And I'm like, okay. See you later. Because it's not. I mean, a podcast is a lot of fun, but let's face it, it's not worth that type of aggravation. So that was my somewhat graceful bowing out from 1138.
It's unfortunate things like that happen. It just takes one bad apple to ruin the bunch, and sadly, whenever you get into a working environment where there's lots of different chefs in the kitchen, everybody has different personalities and different ways of going about things, and doesn't always work out. It's hard navigating through.
You said about.
It's hard navigating through spaces like that. I mean, what led to me leaving is this would have been long after you were gone, is we'd installed something called a council of sorts because the head guy over there who owns 1138 just didn't seem like he was paying attention to the network whatsoever. And I felt like the Wastelands guys were doing more with the network than anyone else. And I mean, for those that do watch this video right now, I have no problem going to bat for whether it's McMahon or Mondo. And I felt like we were doing more. I'm not saying our show was more successful than the Star Wars Underworld. I'm not an idiot. Our live show on Mixler at points was getting more views than those guys, but those guys had a much wider range than we did on podcast distribution and all that stuff. And they should. Their show, like you said, is very clean, very crisp. They present themselves well. Dominic does an incredible job organizing things over there,
Oh yeah.
and Ben is one of the nicest humans you're ever going to meet on the planet Earth. So
It's true. It's true. Hand to God.
and so we with Chris's permission, we put a council in place, and things had started to turn around over there. And we had like not like a huge vision, but like things were starting to run smoothly, not just one show, but the network again. And he came back and essentially kiboshed it and wanted to install his own ideas and just more or less throw everything we were doing out the window and do his own thing. And yeah, I was a little pissed off at it, but I'll stick my neck out for him. He owns that place. It's like if I'm the general manager of a baseball team that you own, Dave, and I want to take it in one direction, but you own the team.
Again, with the baseball analogy.
Then at the end of the day, you get to make that call because you're the one that owns it. And
Yep.
and for me, that was it doesn't bug me as much anymore what happened over there. It bugs me that we couldn't find a peaceful resolution. But I just needed to get out and do my own thing. The thing that bugged me the most is Tommy B, you know him as Thomas Patrick Bradshaw, has busted his ass off over there
yeah.
since the day I showed up. That's how I met him. And got zero credit from it, from some of the guys over there. And it's like, dude, the person putting out most of your posts and sharing all your posts and making everything set up, him. And like you just shit on the guy. And I didn't like that at all. And I made sure wherever I went that I was going to try to bring him with me. And he gracefully followed and wouldn't do anything without him. So
Yeah, Thomas is a class act all the way. And you know what really grinds my gears about things like this? And so it's not just your situation, not just mine, but these situations happen all over the place. It's that communication can solve 80% of all these problems. If people would just speak and listen with an open mind and try to see things from different points of view, I mean, a lot of these problems could have been solved.
absolutely.
But it is what it is. I mean, nothing lasts forever. So you had to move on there eventually.
No, I completely agree with that, man. So let me ask you. This isn't completely clear to me. I just remember seeing one day that you weren't a part of Get Your Geek On anymore. I know you and I had a brief conversation, I believe, over the holidays about it. Busy time of year. I'm sure I could go back and look through that conversation, or I could have you tell me on air right now. It worried me that maybe you were getting out of the game altogether, and I to this day I think there's a lot of people that aren't really sure what happened with Get Your Geek On. I know some of the people that watch us on, I guess now, watch our pre-recorded stuff on Mondays. Guys like Matt Tapasio and Sean Hockney and Kenny Crayley and George Rivera tune into both of our stuff. I know they follow you, and I know they follow us. And I think there's just some unclarity of how you're not a part of that, and how we went from you not being a part of that to I think there was a brief time where you weren't doing too much, and then out of nowhere, Geek News Now comes up. How did all that go down?
So I built up an award-winning radio show. I mean, it was local awards. It wasn't like we were elected to the Radio Hall of Fame or anything, but still, for a small show that was just trying to make it big, we won a couple of awards. Was very happy with that. There are two things that will kill any show on radio very quickly. One is lack of money, because you have to buy the airtime. I mean, the radio is not just going to give you the equipment, the personnel, and the airtime. And the second is lack of support.
Are you allowed to say how much how much money you needed in order to run Get Your Geek On while it was on AM radio? Like, what's something like that looking at, if maybe that's someone's dream, something they want to do down there?
Well, keep in mind, it changes from market to market. So I'm in San Antonio, which is the 7th largest population city in the United States. I think it's like the 35th medium market. So prices here are going to be different in Houston, which is the 4th largest city and like the 3rd largest market, of course, versus New York or a city like Toronto, which is, again, just a big old city. So if you're trying to get a radio show in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, or Des Moines, Iowa, your rates are probably going to be a little bit different than mine. So just keep that in mind. But at the end, I was paying $1,000 a month.
And that was for you were going on air what? How many days a week?
Once a week.
Once a week. So
Once a
four
week,
to
yeah.
5 episodes, depending on the month. $1,000 a month.
Yeah, that was it. So I had to have sponsors, had to have financial backing, had to keep feeding the bulldog, so to speak. And after a while, the sponsors just dried up for whatever reason. Each one had their own reason. The small businesses said, "Yeah, this is too much for us," and we had big businesses that were interested, but they wanted us to be syndicated first into various cities. And I had big cities. I had Houston, Dallas, Denver, and Phoenix interested in syndication, provided we could get big corporations to come on board. So it was a catch-22. And so that kind of stunk. That was not a lot of fun. But the other thing that killed it was, like I said, the second part is lack of support. So I would want to go to various events in and around Texas, and I wanted to expand what we were doing, but I couldn't get anyone to go with me. And as you can guess, it's kind of hard to be the guy holding the camera and the mic trying to do interviews at the same time. It takes a village, essentially, to run one of these shows. And I wanted to do a monthly geek magazine, and a digital online magazine once a month. And I had reached out to Gal Gadot and Chris Evans, who is Wonder Woman and Captain America, respectively. And we were going to send them letters from the children of San Antonio. They would ask them questions. We would send in an email form, obviously, send the questions to their agent, and then they would answer, and we put that on the back cover. And they were interested in doing that. Of course, that would naturally open up the door for more celebrities. So more events, a geek magazine. I wanted to expand kind of news articles and opinion pieces, that sort of thing. But nobody else wanted to come on board. Nobody else wanted to do those events. So it ended up being just me for the most part. There were other people that did some work, some technical work behind the scenes. But when it came to 85, 90% of the show, it was kind of just me pushing these ideas, trying to grow, trying to get us to do more so that eventually we would get picked up, we would get syndicated. We were really close to doing so, and then that could be my full-time job. And oh man, forget it. That would have been so much fun. If all I was doing was get your geek on, that's the dream come true right there. And so that was the two big elements that killed that off. So we started in June of 2016. We made it all the way to June of 2019. So we completed 3 years on the air. And eventually I was like, I can't do this on my own. And the bills were starting to pile up. So that was that. That was all there was to it. Finger to the throat means death. And that was that. So I laid low for a few months. Wasn't sure what I would do, if I would do anything at all. I just kind of sat back, went to Disney World, hung out in Orlando for a week and a half, and then just got the itch, man. Just got that urge to jump back in. But I wanted, like they say in the Muppets Take Manhattan, I want more dogs and cats and chickens and whatever the hell Gonzo is. So I want more writers and more podcasters, and I want more people to get that passion project of theirs off the ground. So that's where Geek News Now came from.
That's awesome, man. To me, that right there, that story is inspiring, because even though you can be at one point and you get knocked down, doesn't mean you can't get back up again. And you've shown that. So that's awesome.
Did you ever know that you're my hero?
One of the things that I am doing myself is I've made 2 attempts at filming a Halloween fan film. Big Halloween fan. I have a bunch of footage. One was about 50% shot. The other one was about 90% shot. But the problem is, even not shooting 10% of that film, made it impossible to put together.
You do realize that as soon as you said Halloween fan film, everybody watching this immediately got the theme song in their head.
Good, good, excellent.
Like, don't lie, you know you did.
Um, so one thing we've decided to do, and this hasn't been officially announced yet, but I guess I'll throw it out in this video, is this channel was really built off of. We got to go to the Toronto International Film Festival in 2018 and got to see the Halloween world premiere. That was awesome. One of the best sort of fandom experiences I've had in my life. It led to doing some videos because you've seen the movie almost 2 months before everyone else. It didn't mean I was going on these videos and being like, yep, you, that guy right there, that guy dead, dies. You know it. No, I mean, I think I did one spoiler video, and I didn't do that till like a few days before the release. Everything else were just like vague, non-spoiler facts, but still interest people. And the views were, they weren't huge for YouTube numbers, but compared to the podcast numbers we were getting, 5,000 views, 7,000 views, 10,000 views. And it's like, oh, okay, this actually works.
People are interested. Good to know.
Yeah, so I feel like 90% of our subscriber fan base here on this channel is Halloween fans, and then the other 10% sort of mixed up with like Star Wars and Supernatural fans. And we want to build that up, but we're still going to be doing some Halloween coverage. And one of the things we're going to do is a few of us are going to get together and finish off shooting that a little bit of both fan films and sort of combine all the footage into one. And when we do a Halloween update, at the end of the update video, or even Halloween, we have a show called Halloween Talk. I know, very plain and simple title.
Yeah, y'all really had to work hard
I
to
know,
come up with
right?
that one.
Sometimes it actually fits with the new movies. Because, I mean, the one in 2018 is titled Halloween. The one that comes out this year is titled Halloween Kills. And the final one that comes out next year is titled Halloween Ends. So I wanted it to sort of be simple, like they were going to the movies. And so at the end of these clips, or at the end of these updates that we're going to do, we're going to release like little 2-minute snippets of the fan film, but edited in a way that it's distributed as almost like a web series. And if you want to see the next one, you're going to have to watch our next video and end each one on a little bit of a cliffhanger and keep going that way. And it's better than the footage sitting on my computer doing shit all for the last 2 years. So
that's awesome. And that shows with podcasting, YouTubing, Twitch, Mixer, whatever you do, it's persistence. You got to stick with it. You can't just let your dream die. You got to be able to really fight for it. Even if you're fighting with yourself, you still got to fight for it.
So, is there anything that you're allowed to talk about right now with where Geek News Now is heading? Any goals that you have? Anything coming up in the near future?
Well, there's some news, and this is where the whole journalistic integrity thing actually kind of sucks every once in a while. We were able to release some big news. We had the Jake Lloyd update, which got picked up by the New York Daily Post and Yahoo News, and a couple of publications in London, and one in Poland actually picked it up. That was kind of interesting. So we were able to break that news. I've got some other news that I have to sit on. I'm not. I have the news. I'm just not allowed to release it yet. Sorry. That kind of sucks. But what Geek News Now is trying to do is to become kind of a media network that incorporates as much as possible. But at its core, I want the website to be a hub for anyone who's a geek, anyone who's a podcaster, a content creator, anything like that, because the website is specifically designed to post the news as fast as it breaks. So someone like you could check it first thing in the morning, see what kind of headlines are out there, and then you can come back 3 hours later and there might be different headlines up there. And you can come back 3 hours after that, there might be different headlines up there again. Because as fast as the news breaks, that's how quickly it gets posted to our website. So that, first and foremost, is what I wanted. And, oh, by the way, it is from legitimate sources. We got this covered, can suck it. All right, let me just put that out there.
Anytime someone who has access to one of our pages, we don't have a whole lot of moderators. There's a few editors and people that can post. Small group of us, but whenever I see one of them slip up and post something about we got this covered, it's like,
Oh,
or my spouse will be like, oh, so I heard such and such, and I'm like, yeah, who's posting it? Oh, we got this covered. And she's actually gotten better about looking at who the source is, which is good on her because I mean she doesn't know anything
yeah,
about that stuff.
absolutely.
But no, we got this covered uh, as trash as Mike Zero.
It really is. It's like reading the National Enquirer and taking it for gospel truth, and that's what drives me crazy. So you'll get legit news, and you'll get it as fast as it's published over at geeknewsnow.net. So that was my one of my first and most fundamental goals is to get the right news out there as fast as possible. What we have in the works, what's in the hopper, there are some internal things I can't talk about, but I can say that the goal is to hit 4 different mediums, and that's podcast, YouTube, video, so that's YouTube and Twitch, writing articles and opinion pieces, and of course, social media. And so we're trying to cook all of those 4 things at once. So that's kind of been a little bit of a struggle, but at the same time, I'm patient. We started this thing around Halloween of last year. We started this around Halloween of last year. So it hasn't even been, it's been like barely 4 months. So I don't look at this 4 months at a time. I look at this at like 4 years at a time. I've got phases in mind, but the phases are like year 1, year 3, year 5. So yeah, we're in this for the long haul. That I can say for sure. So we'll have more, and I'll let you know. Also, I'll be sure to include you in the loop when we break some news.
Can't wait, man. Well, to close out our last 10 or 15 minutes here, why don't we talk a little bit about some of the news that's going on?
Yeah, let's cover some news. Yeah.
So today I actually seen it first by you. I had no idea what it was, and then Tommy B ended up posting it on our Fandom Empire page, and that was Star Wars Project Maverick. And when I first seen it, I'm like, I didn't know if it was like something you were planning to do in the world of Star Wars or what it was. I didn't have time to read it. I was literally on my way out the door. I'm like, okay. And then I seen Tommy B posted. I'm like, okay, maybe there's something to this. To my understanding, this is a smaller, low key Star Wars game that from EA Motive that might come out. Is it 2021? I read. What do
Yeah.
you know about Project Maverick?
The way this came about was that it was a leak. It was an accident. The PlayStation Store in Europe accidentally let this slip out, and there was a bot whose job it is to track what is released on various PlayStation stores that brought it to someone's attention on Twitter, and that's where it kind of started to crop up. The leading theory, and I want to stress it's a theory, but it does make quite a bit of sense, is that it's going to be a TIE Fighter / X-Wing style simulator. You can see in the poster that was released, you can see some X-Wings kind of flying their way over to a star destroyer in an asteroid field. So that kind of makes sense. I'm really hopeful that it's not going to be this big, massive Battlefront style game. I hope they keep it kind of low key, keep it simple, really not put too much thought into this. When we get a massive game, great, that's fantastic. But I think right now what Star Wars needs is a simple, fun, adventure style simulator game. That's all we. I mean, X-Wing and TIE Fighter were massive hits back in the day, and it sure wasn't for those cutting-edge graphics and cutscenes. It's because you got to fly around a TIE Fighter and blow stuff up. I mean, that was the best part. So I'm really hopeful it's going to be that again.
I mean, I'd be okay with that. The last thing I want to see, though, is if it's a smaller base game, them release it at a full price point. I mean, yeah, see, that, like...
Got to make that money.
I get that, but there's a lot of smaller games that come out at about 2/3 the price of a normal game now. I'm hoping that's what they do. I mean, to buy a full video game, if it's any sort of big title up here in Canada, $93 after tax. That's not the console. That's just the game. $93. And that's staggering when you consider when I was literally just in my teens, you could buy a new game for about $47. The price has doubled.
Well, and the sad thing is that with these big games, I can't remember which one it was. If it was Call of Duty or it was something recent, maybe it was Rainbow Six, where you got the game, you ordered it, or maybe you got a physical copy, and it was already like 112 gigs, and then they immediately had a patch you had to download that was like another 80 something gigs. Immediately, it's like a 200 gig game when the PS4's hard drive size, the standard one, is 500. It's like, are you kidding me? I remember back in the day when my dad bought a new hard drive for our computer and doubled it from 40 megs to 80 megs, so I could play Monkey Island, Civilization, and X-Wing all at the same time and didn't have to, uninstall a game to make room to install a game. And now we have patches that are multiple gigs in size. I mean, good God. I don't think we need something like that. I think, and this is something that I wish they'd done with the sequel trilogy, it's, the movies. Simple, fun, adventure story. We don't need something that, I remember seeing the behind the scenes video for Battlefront, and they went to where they shot Endor. They went to the forest, and they got to take a 3D scan of the actual Death Star prop, and I'm like, great, but how does the game play?
Exactly, right?
It's awesome that y'all put this much work into it. I appreciate that, but that's a lot of money y'all are spending for a game that better play well. and of course opinions vary. So just give me a Michael Bay version of a Star Wars game. Just pew pew, and I'm good. That's what I'm looking forward to.
All right, let's keep this ball rolling. Today, and we're going to do our own separate little YouTube video on this too. If depending on how long it takes editing this video, I might get it out tonight, but tomorrow's probably a safer bet. Some more images from The Batman were released, and I was someone who was very pro Robert Pattinson being casted. I think people just look at him and go, "Oh, look, it's the guy from Twilight. He sparkles. He can't act." It's like, well, clearly you haven't watched anything he's done since then, because not only can he act, the dude's fucking brilliant. In my opinion, all film and actors and actresses are subjective, but I'm stoked for this. Not a big-time Matt Reeves guy. One of the reasons I like the Nolan trilogy is because it's more of a grounded Batman. But now, after the last few images that have come out, it's clear they're going for like a really grounded Batman, and it seems dark and gritty. And they released the Batmobile today, which my dad would kick my ass for me not knowing what type of car that is. It looks like it could be a Camaro or a Challenger, or even a Mustang. All those cars had a similar shape and design back then. It's definitely an older muscle car, that I can say. I've seen a lot of people not liking it, but I sort of like this idea of a super grounded, non-superpower Batman universe where this is happening, and it seems to be what they're going for. What have you thought from not only today's images, but the suits, and then there was the one of Pattinson's stunt double on the bike too. How do you feel so far about what's going on? Yay, nay?
Well, when it comes to the car, it looks very supernatural-ish, like that Impala that the brothers drive. And so some people have started to call it Fast and the Furious Gotham Drift, and because it looks like an actual car you could drive, as opposed to the tank in the Nolan series, or the one with the disco ball in it from Batman Forever. That was what Batman was missing, was a disco ball in his hood. So I'm glad he got that figured out. I'm digging it so far, and I'm with you on the Pattinson thing for two reasons. One, there were actual, back in the day before email, people would actually write out letters and put them in these envelopes and mail them to studios. And they got a bunch of those when they announced Michael Keaton was going to be Batman. And there was a lot of backlash for that. And of course, now Michael Keaton is beloved. A lot of people still consider him to be the Batman. And then, of course, Heath Ledger came along, and boy, the outrage over Heath Ledger, the pretty boy from Brokeback Mountain and A Knight's Tale. How is he going to be the Joker? And I think we all know how well that turned out. So I'm willing to give Pattinson the benefit of the doubt. Yeah, he's a pretty boy, but at the same time, he does have that brooding demeanor. I remember seeing him first in Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, and he wasn't. I'm not sure how to put it, but you could tell that there's a real acting range there. There's something to be said for how he actually acted in Twilight. Yeah, he's the sparkly vampire. Yeah, I get it. But if you watch that movie, or sorry, now series of movies, and you just watch him, and you see how he goes from loving Bella, protecting Bella, hating Jacob, how he is when he fights Bryce Dallas Howard as Victoria, there's a range there as well. So I'm really interested to see him be the playboy Bruce Wayne and Batman at the same time, because the big criticism of a lot of actors so far is that, well, he makes a really good Bruce Wayne but a lousy Batman. Well, he makes a really good Batman but a lousy Bruce Wayne. I think Robert Pattinson might be the first one to do both really well.
I wouldn't put it past him, that's for sure. One of the things that really stands out to me going forward with the Batman flick is, I get it that, maybe Ben Affleck wasn't the most loved Batman. I thought he was fine personally. I loved that take on Batman. I really liked Christian Bale in the Batman.
It's a real crime. It's a real crime that Batfleck did not get his own standalone movie.
Completely.
Oh, that was such a crime. I hated that.
Couldn't agree more. And at the end of the day, I'm really curious to see what they do with this movie. Correct me if I'm wrong, though. I don't think they've released anything with this movie to suggest it takes place in, like, the year 2020, because I have a working theory. And my theory is that it doesn't take place in 2020. I haven't seen anything to suggest it takes place anywhere in the last 10, maybe even 20 years.
You're thinking this is Batman year 2?
I'm thinking. I think he's probably a little into his Batman run, but I'm thinking this film could take place in the late 90s, even mid to late 90s. And I remember hearing, and this wasn't just We Got This Covered shit either. There was all sorts of sites that picked this up. I believe Deadline and Variety and The Hollywood Reporter all ran, okay, a Joker sequel's happening. I've visually seen Joaquin Phoenix say he'd be up for doing the role again. I'm not saying the two are connected, but then the reports came up before that report that, oh, well, maybe they're going to try to tie them both in, and not everything needs to be a tie-in, I get that. But thus far, I've seen nothing to suggest that this movie doesn't take place in the 90s, and definitely does take place now. And if the movie is taking place in the 90s, which would only put him 15, 16 years older than his Joker character, I'm not positive we're not going to see a Joaquin Phoenix Joker in one of the upcoming Batman movies, if there is even more than one. At least I haven't seen anything that should rule that out yet. Where are you with that?
I'm going to call my shot, and I'm going to say that this movie takes place in the past. There are enough context clues out there. Robert Pattinson is a younger actor to play Bruce Wayne than what we've seen before. And everything that I've seen so far, tech-wise, the fact that the Batman symbol is the gun, the broken pieces of the gun that's the callback to his parents' murder. You don't go through 20-something years of being Batman and then do that. You do that like right out of the gate as a reminder or whatever, as a symbol or whatever. So I'm going to call my shot and say that yes, this one will take place in the past. When it comes to a Joker sequel, I have no doubt that that has been pitched. Probably even a series of Joker films where eventually it will tie in with Batman or something like that. But there's too much money out there. The Joker movie made $1 billion at the box office. I mean, that's way, way too much money for them not to pitch the idea of a sequel. Even if it made half that, take half away, give it to Mike Bloomberg, because that poor guy, he's hurting right now. Okay, he spent a lot of money on that campaign. He's so hurting. You would still want a sequel out of that Joker film. So I don't know that it's going to happen, though. And in a way, I hope it doesn't, because that movie almost deserves to be in its own special place, on its own pedestal, on its own... I'm not sure how else to put it, but I think that it deserves to be just on its own, be like, we did a thing. It was really cool. We did a thing. Now let's go back to people punching each other in the face.
I thought the Joker was the best movie of 2019. It resonated with me on a level I never thought it would. I've always thought Joaquin Phoenix is obviously a tremendous actor.
Mm-hmm.
But wow, did he ever earn that fucking Oscar. He's in every frame of that movie, and it is spectacular. I'm with you. I think there's the chance it happens, but if I'm a betting man, it may not happen for all the reasons that you just pointed out.
Yeah.
Final topic here before we go, and that is, I believe it was early last week, if I'm not mistaken, not Monday that just passed, but the Monday before, Star Wars rolled out the High Republic series. And the interesting thing about this is I legit knew with a lot of other people that this was happening. I sat down with Jason Ward a while ago from Making Star Wars, and he released his little post on the High Republic being the next set of movies that would come out, and that there was a novel series coming with it, and a video game that would go with it too. Now I see that Lucasfilm and Star Wars is standing hard on it's just a novel series for now.
Sure.
I don't buy it at all. I think, whether you like what Making Star Wars does, or like Jason, or don't like Jason, the fact is what they do over there is more accurate than not. And first of all, give me the High Republic series. I know it didn't turn out to be 400 years before the prequels. It's only like 200 years or whatever they decided to do. But you mean to tell me we're supposed to believe from Lucasfilm, you finally get a group of writers and creative projectors into a room for multiple meetings to thoroughly plan something out from start to finish.
I know where this is going.
Like you didn't do with certain projects that came out over the last half decade. And we're supposed to take it as it's only going to be a novel series? Come on. Like, I get maybe they don't want to let the cat out of the hat yet. But are the next set of movies not in the High Republic? And is this not their way of laying foundation for that? Or are they being completely truthful with, we don't know what the next set of movies is, and right now it's just a novel series?
Is it just me? I keep wanting to call it the High Ground series. Is that just me? It's like I have to stop myself. It's High Republic. High Republic. Stop that. This is the direction that a lot of people have wanted this franchise to go for a long time. So it should really come as no surprise that they're going to go this route. But for them not to fully exploit it with movies and a series and spin-offs and yada, yada, yada would be a massive mistake. Not just financially, but also for the mistake for the franchise. It's pretty clear what they did with the sequels was they're just like, JJ, just wing it. Okay, fine, I'm just going to wing it. Rian Johnson, you just wing it. Okay, I'm going to wing it. Oh my God, he winged it. JJ, wing it back, please. So they figured out that, yeah, okay, we need to actually write everything out and plan everything out and make sure diversity is on the whiteboard twice, right next to the dinosaurs and all that fun stuff. So they learned the hard way that if you're going to do this, you've got to be able to plan everything out. Not every little, of course, all the minutiae and all the little details, but they need to go this way for two reasons. One, it's fresh ground. They're not doing anything with Daisy Ridley again. They're done with her and Oscar Isaac and John Boyega. They're done. All right. Thank you very much. We're done. And the second reason is they learned from The Mandalorian. People are going to go nuts because they're going to see a younger Yoda. And they're like, well, they're going crazy for Baby Yoda. And they've always wanted to see Yoda in his prime. So now we're going to see a younger Yoda. And, of course, that's merchandise gold right there. So they'll be able to make a bajillion dollars off of that as well. So, no, this will be a movie series. This will be have a spin-off or two, or hopefully two. And this will be a video game at some point as well. This is going to be where Star Wars is going to make its home for the next probably 6 to 8 years, minimum.
Yeah, I'd be stunned if that's not the way they go. They'd be blunt fucking idiots to not go that way. It almost feels like this is their soft reboot of and this is what a little birdie whispered in my ear, a soft reboot of their Knights of the Old Republic stuff. Not saying you're going to see a bunch of characters with those same names, but taking a little of what they did and going, okay, well, hey, one of the knocks on Knights of the Old Republic is it's 4,000 years before these movies, and yet you have very similar looking spacecraft and so
it's sort of like poetry, it rhymes.
So like things didn't evolve in 4,000 years. You move it up to a few hundred years before this series, and it might be more believable to take place there. Also, should be noted that if you look in the Rise of Skywalker little visual dictionary, they very gently made the Revan name canon. Not saying he's going to tie in. That'd be a pipe dream on my behalf, but.
You will.
We'll see what happens. A guy can hope. He's got to hope for something, right? You can only be negative for so many fucking years. Give me some positivity. Anyways, though, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it for our hour with Mr. David Gremillion on episode 1 of Inside and Out with Sage. The guy who
Bam!
is the leadoff hitter, hitting the ball through the goalie's 5-hole into the hockey net. You can figure that one out. Dude, this was a lot of fun. We haven't sat down and had a long chat like this in a while. I thank you for being the first guest. We'll have to maybe a couple months from now we'll come back, redo this, and do an hour on how the sequel trilogy just doesn't line up at all together.
We may need more than that. That's I'm actually debating in my mind what the bigger mistake was, the prequels or the sequels. And yeah, I'll go there because. Well, you know how I feel about the prequels anyway, so we'll leave that little tidbit for next time. Thanks for having me on, man. It's been a pleasure and honestly a privilege that you would have me. You could have had anybody come on, man. You could have had Daisy Ridley, Kathleen Kennedy. You could have had George Lucas. You could have Anthony Daniels. But no, it's that you chose me to be first up on the show. So I appreciate that. My tip of the cap to you.
Well, that's appreciated. Where can everybody find you at, man?
Okay, so Geek News Now is the name of the organization. The main website that I love how quickly it gets the news out. That's geeknewsnow.net. You can look us up on Facebook, which is Geek News Now. You can also find us on Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, and YouTube. Just look for GNN or Geek News Now. Either way you like to do it, it'll lead you to the same spot. So that's us in a nutshell.
All right, man. Well, thanks for gracing us with your time. It was a lot of fun. Thanks for letting us get inside and out of David Gremillion.
Love it.
You can find us at Fandom Empire on Facebook. If you're a Halloween fan, check out our Halloween Kills 2020 page. We just launched a Supernatural page called Supernatural Revisited, which isn't going to do a whole lot right now, but once the series ends in May, if you're missing the series, you're going to be able to come and check us out there, and we're actually going to be doing a Supernatural YouTube show, so guys like me who just can't let go of things are going to keep the show alive for you going forward. If you want to check out our Facebook groups, we have the newly launched Fandom Empire Roundtable and the High Republic Alliance. And then you have a group that this guy here started, helped us start and name the Future of Star Wars, who I just sort of let die and become inactive on Facebook. But we'll try to get the revival tools out and get that shit going again. Find us on Twitter at Fandom Empire Now, and you can also find us on Instagram at Fandom Empire Now. Again, thanks to David Gremillion for doing this, and I wish all of you a good night.